right. Thank you so much, Nitasha, for agreeing for this session in the series of conversation for candidates to get shortlisted, get hired. Those who know or have been looking for job, you might have heard about People, and Nitasha is the head HR at People. So we thought who could be better than Nitasha to talk about how to get shortlisted and how to get hired. So welcome, Nitasha.
Thank you. Thank you, Mahala. Thank you so much for having me on this spotlight session. Thank you.
Welcome again. So those who know Nitasha started her journey with Goldman Sachs and then joined Infosys. She has been with Ajim Premji Foundation. Earlier, it was Ajim Premji Philanthropy Arm. So she was there in the HR team. Then she joined Transform Schools, and now she is at People. So she understand the ecosystem. See, understand what goes in when hiring happen. How does recruiter make decisions? And that's something that we would be today talking. So the flow of the session would be more on sort of fireside chat. We have received question from you while you register for these sessions. Those who are watching, we'll just talking about that, and at the end, after say 40 minutes, we would be talking, taking some one-on-one as well. So you can ask if you have question, and we're starting with the fireside chat. So yeah, welcome Nitasha again. Shall we start?
Yes, let's go.
Awesome. So there are around 8 to 10 questions. We got almost 124 registration before I was just writing 30 minutes before the session. So almost 8 to 10 questions are from someone who just want to get into the sector. सेक्टर में इंटर कैसे करना है, कहाँ से स्टार्ट करें, फ्रेशर्स के रोल किस तरह के होते हैं, आप लोग जो हायर करते हैं क्या देखते हो, कैसे देखते हो, मैं अपना चांस कैसे बनाऊं टू गेट शॉर्ट लिस्टेड इफ आई एम एज फ्रेशर. सो या लेट्स स्टार्ट विद दैट.
Yeah. So I think getting into the sector, it also depends on at what point you want to get into the sector. So maybe at entry level, you should be willing to do entry level work, right? So one of the things that I hear a lot when people apply to the social sector, they say, and I ask them, why do you want to do the social sector? They say, oh, because I want to give back to society. This will give me purpose, right? So it is less about the organization, it is less about the sector and more about how it's fulfilling for them. I think we're past that stage of intent, right? So I think if you're applying to the social sector, be very clear about why you want to be part of the sector. Like any other sector, this is competitive, it's complex, it's dynamic, it's got great opportunities. So I think a little bit of homework on the kind of organizations that is there and really looking at what role fits best given your interest and your experience and skill set. So a lot of times people are spraying and praying that somebody gets back to them. But I think being more intentional about which thematic area, what kind of organization would really help build that resonance. But I think for freshers, there are lots of opportunities opening up. There's fellowships, there's volunteering. So I think maybe you start with a format like that. So you wet your toes, you understand what the culture in a civil society organization is like, what are the expectations, and then you gradually build a career in that, right? So that would be my thing about entering the sector. Know the sector a little bit, and don't sort of just by chance I'm applying, let's see what happens. I think we're past that in the social sector. Yeah.
एंड सम ऑफ दिस folks also ask कि किस तरह का स्किल जनरली हम एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं फ्रेशर्स.
Yeah. So I think so one of the things that the social sector, especially for freshers, is to be able to just wear many hats, right? Because when you're in the social sector, everybody comes in with a bit of a builder's mindset. You've got to unlearn very quickly. You've got to be willing to do many things all at once, because time, money, it's all finite. So we're trying to maximize with very little. So having like very clear roles, a lot of structure, a lot of, it's not, so you've got to get in and really try. So I think being versatile, being adaptable, being able to, take on and say, and try new things, I think that is something that will really help, especially when you first come into the sector.
Great. So, next कुछ सवाल हैं around someone who's been preparing for UPSC, career breaks है या फिर return to work है. So, वो लोग कैसे स्टार्ट करें अपना कैरियर से समवन विद 2 to 3 year कैरियर ब्रेक है या यूपीएससी के लिए तैयारी कर रहे हैं 3-4 साल से. सो वो किस तरह के रोल देखें और किस तरह से वो सेक्टर में अप्लाई करें, किस तरह से वो अपने आप को सेक्टर के लिए तैयार दिखाएं.
Yeah. So I think so we do have folks who have been preparing for the UPSC and they've applied to us and they've come in at the associate level, right? So I think what's important for folks who have taken a break would be to be in a role that gives them a broad overview of what the organization does. So typically a founder's office kind of role or director's office. So, tagging with maybe senior leadership to understand what the organization does, help them and support them in planning and organizing their work. It gives them a good segue into understanding the organization and its strategy and the breadth of its work. So I think there are roles like those. There are also fellowships and volunteering opportunities, and now fellowships are extremely structured. They're very clear on what you can gain in the 2 years, the kind of exposure that you will have. It's also a good testing period to see what parts of the organization and its work that relates to you. So I think that would be a good place to start. But honestly, Peepul as an organization is very open, right? Because I think the level of dedication, resilience, and perseverance that folks who have been preparing for these competitive exams bring is something of great value for us. They're very good with research. They're very good with documentation. They're extremely good at long form writing. So I think all of these are very useful skills for us. So we definitely encourage people with who have taken a break for competitive exams to apply to us.
ग्रेट. सो एक बहुत सवाल बार बार आता है which is around resume. How do you look at resume? How do you identify that this is the person that I need and you shortlist them? So how do you look at that
Yeah,
resume?
so I think if you think about the Peepul HR team, we are easily looking at 400 to 500 resumes in a week, right? So the volume is large, but we are not doing volume hiring. We are looking at very few people, but the volume is very large. So I think what sets apart a good resume is if I'm able to quickly look at what contribution or what impact the individual has been able to do in their career or in their, the sum total of their experience. So a lot of times if resumes are very long sentences, they're very vague. It's not giving me a sense of, okay, what was your core responsibility? What was your career trajectory like? Where did you make the most impact? Because then I'm not able to match those skills or those competencies to my role. So I'm immediately then wondering if is this the right fit? Is this not? And when you're going through 300, 400 resumes, you want that, you want that impact metrics to come out very clearly. So I think that is really helpful if you can make it sharp on impact and contribution. What my team is also very clear about is the HR team should know what the organization is doing because it is a place of certain responsibility. Imagine the HR team is the first one to reject a resume or pass the resume to the next round. So I think we have a responsibility to understand what the organization does, what our programs are doing, how we're growing. Because today in Peepul, if there is an application that comes for a particular role and we think they're not the best fit, we already know there could be another role that they're a fit for. So we earmark it and we go back and we check with the candidate. But I can do this if I'm very clear what the person brings to the table. So I think that sharpness in writing is something that sets a resume apart. And yes, there is AI. Yes, we have ATS AI matching tools, but we don't lean on them too much because they can be very inaccurate. So we still do the traditional opening every CV, looking at it. But when a person is doing that day after day, it can get jaded. So, right. So just to resonate easier with the role and the organization. Lastly, I think a cover letter, especially for folks who are transitioning into the social sector or even within the social sector are changing tracks. I think a well-written cover letter, because that tells me why you're choosing Peepul over any other organization, why you're choosing this role and how that relates to, your set of expertise. So I think that makes for a much richer conversation if we can have a really sharp cover letter. So I think these are some things that we look at.
Great. I think this is the fourth call in the series of Get Shortlisted. And the same thing that coming up is don't run with that AI word matching, etc. It's more on how do you come in or how do you show your relevance and कॉन्टेक्स्ट कितना है आपको उसका समझ है कि नहीं है रोल आप कर पाओगे नहीं कर पाओगे सो उसके अराउंड आपका बैकग्राउंड क्या है ग्रेट बहुत सारे कॉमन मिस्टेक आप बात करते हैं हम जब आपसे बात करते रहते हैं अ, आप अगर कुछ कॉमन मिस्टेक्स जो रिज्यूमे में लोग करते हैं जो हमें माइंडफुल रहना चाहिए बहुत स्मॉल है बट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है तो
I think definitely do a spell check. I think we have enough tools to do spell check. So definitely make spell check, grammar, like make sure that you've got the hygiene right. Second, like I said, don't make it too long. And especially if you've had many roles and many organizations that you've been a part of, maybe you want to champion the last three that you were a part of, instead of going into a lot of detail about every organization. And typically, resumes also where roles look very similar. So you've progressed, but you've been doing the same kind of role. Then it makes us wonder, okay, how have you progressed? What have you done differently? So sort of writing the same tag words across roles, across positions, that sort of doesn't give us a sense of, okay, what have you progressed on? So I think don't make it too long, don't make it generic, don't make it too broad. Keep it sharp, keep it outcome focused, and maybe really just focus on the last three most significant. And what I've seen really works well is giving a short summary right on top of your most significant successes, right? And they can be like, they can be dependent on your role. So you could have just 3 years of experience, but something that you're very proud of that you've been able to achieve immediately draws to, your biggest strengths instead of us having to go through an entire thing to get to that part of it. I think that really helps. So I think I also one more thing that I've observed is, people have a long list of certifications and extracurricular that they have done, and then you don't find you're not able to connect that to their work at all, right? So they're just standing like two separate, mutually exclusive parts. So if you have invested so much time in, professional development, then how has that impacted your work? So otherwise it just stands as a standalone thing and it just takes up real estate on the resume. So yeah.
So should we take it as saying that uh, मैंने बहुत सारे सर्टिफिकेट करे वो दैट डजंट मैटर व्हाट मैटर्स इज ये मैं जिस रोल के लिए अप्लाई कर रहा हूँ उससे कैसा रिलेवेंट है
Absolutely, because otherwise it's a long list of certifications at varying levels of proficiency, right? And I don't know how that has impacted your work or impacted your experience at all, or how you've been able to apply it.
There's a
So
follow-up question in the same bracket which is around while shortlisting do you look at which college I'm coming from does that make uh, how do you look at that and does that impact my chances of get shortlisted how do you look at that
yeah, so we're not so fussed about the colleges or the universities, but we do look at for certain roles where we're expecting certain technical skills. I think the subject in which you've done your master's or your bachelor's, that helps because then you've studied that in theory and you've applied that in practice. So for especially roles around communications, monitoring evaluation, so these can get technical. So we do expect that even for our teachers, when we hire teachers, we do expect that they have a qualification in education and in B8, for example. So those become mandatory. So it's the course that you have done, not so much. It doesn't have to be an Ivy League. It doesn't have to be top 20. But is it a relevant course? Have you studied? Are you conceptually sound in theory? That's something that we do look for. And of course, not all roles again, but some specific roles where it becomes important.
great कुछ सवाल हैं सैलरीज और फाइनेंशियल ग्रोथ के अराउंड कंपनसेशन एक्सपेक्टेशंस पूछते हैं बहुत बार हम भी पूछते हैं ग्राउंड जीरो पे आप भी पूछते हैं उसको लेके हाउ शुड वन रिस्पॉन्ड एंड व्हाट इज द अर्निंग पोटेंशियल और से salary bands looks like in general? Agar someone is looking for an opportunity, you can respond from people perspective, or you can respond in general because you have been in the ecosystem for more than a decade. So,
Yeah. So I think from an ecosystem perspective, it really depends on the kind of organization, right? Because I think compensation and affordability is tied to funding pipeline. And a lot of times an organization could be doing excellent work, but their grant income could be small. So they may not be able to afford very big salaries, but could still be giving you an excellent opportunity. So that's the kind of trade-off that you may have to make. But specifically in people, I think we are very competitive. And recently, we've also done a benchmarking of the market with people. So we have a good sense of what the trends in the market are, what is the average hikes that are being given in the sector, and how should we remain competitive. While it will never be 100%, how can we remain competitive and weather a little bit, of the attrition that we get because of compensation. So we have tried to keep it as competitive as possible vis-a-vis the market. And of course, we take an average of, our competitor organizations in the market. So I would say that as far as people is concerned, we are definitely very competitive with compensation.
great. And compensation expectation generally कितना रखना चाहिए अगर हाउ डू यू लुक एट जब आप सवाल वो पूछ रहे हो तो आपके दिमाग में क्या रहता है? आई एम श्योर दैट माइट बी फैक्टर इन शॉर्ट लिस्टिंग एज वेल, सो हाउ डू यू?
Yeah, so usually in my conversations, I'm very honest about what our bands are, right? And our bands are sacrosanct. Like I said, it's a scientific calculation. We've done a benchmarking. We know that we are competitive, so we don't make compensation decisions based on individual candidates. We make it at an org level. So we are very transparent about our bands, and depending on the evaluation of the candidate, how much they will hit the ground running, what value they will bring to the organization, we usually place them in the band. But I think being upfront about what the band is something that I follow, and I usually tell them in the first conversation if their expectation is beyond our bands, right? And I think the conversation also is mostly anchored around the opportunity. And I usually, prompt people to think a little more about the opportunity and the long term aspect of financial growth. While you may not see financial growth right now as you join, but over time there is a lot of opportunity and you should join for the opportunity. So but I think being honest about how much you can push and what the organization's reward philosophy is always helps.
Great. There are other sort of question which are around career transition. ये भी बहुत सारे लोगों ने पूछे. How do you look at maybe someone switching sector, someone coming from corporate to non-profits, or switches could be, say, someone is a teacher and want to get into CSR, or someone is working in public health, want to come to education. So how do you look at these career switching the sectors or switching sort of role? What is important if someone is applying or trying explore with the transition?
Yeah. So here I will speak specifically with regard to people, right? So I think having a set of specialized generalist skills is very important. I think especially for some roles, a mix of skills, a mix of experiences across thematic areas brings fresh perspective. So we do encourage people who have maybe not worked in education in the past, but have managed large scale program implementation, have managed government partnerships, understand what it is to operate at scale. So these are important parts of our operating model. Of course, education and knowledge of education is important, but I think if some of these experiences are something you've had in the past, we will still be able to, find that alignment. But there are certain roles, for example, like a teacher's role. So we encourage people to do a fellowship with us for at least 2 years, be part of our school system, understand the school system, because we're also then exposing them to our children, our teachers. So I think it's fair to give them some level of training and grounding, and then we transition them a little carefully. So there could be roles which have more immediate consequence on the communities that we work with or the systems that we work with. So there, maybe having a little bit of a transitionary period is important. But definitely there are transferable skills, right? Like I just mentioned. So and people as an organization that has so many different work streams. So we have implementation, we have government liaising, we have content. So there's a lot of opportunity across all of them. So yeah, so it's not difficult, but yes, some roles may need a bit of a transition period.
Hmm. Got it. There are few, and these are sort of questions that, and then we'll open for AMA. People can ask question directly. Is how do you look at the future of work and emerging opportunities? So there are two questions. How do you look at the future of work, and specifically on the remote hybrid work or offline? What is your sense where we're heading? And then second is, what are the hiring trends? What sort of role that are emerging, and what sort of skill that one even looking for or not looking for transition? What's should they be training themselves and preparing themselves? So
Yeah. So I think on the hybrid remote, again, it depends on the kind of role and the kind of organization that you're part of. So at People, it's very difficult to do remote, right? Because we work with school systems, we work with teachers. It's a very high engagement model. So there is nothing that I will be able to do without collaborating with my critical stakeholders. So in an organization like People, it's not possible to do a hybrid. But having said that, we do allow for flexibility because we do understand that having a 5-day week can be difficult. So we allow for some flexibility. So maybe 2 times a week you can work from home. But we are primarily a work from office setup. So if you have to be at office, that takes precedence over any flexibility. But it's just the way we are set up, right? Our stakeholders are external and it's very high engagement. So it is all hands on deck. But it depends. I do realize that now there is a lot of opportunity, especially around functions like FR. I'm hearing more and more fundraising folks becoming consultants to organizations. So that way they're able to work across 2 to 3 organizations at one point. Maybe even comms, right? Comms, they're able to do it. But enabling functions is possible. But I think core programs, I don't think we're seeing a lot of hybrid work. Because the engagement is so high with community and with stakeholders, I don't think it's possible. And we definitely we're not heading towards hybrid, yes.
so it's contextual. What is something that
Absolutely
working,
contextual, yes.
and then so it's not across sort of everyone decides for themselves. Great. And what is the hiring trends? Where do you think sort of role that are emerging at People, or maybe you see in the ecosystem that are emerging?
Yeah, so I think hiring, I would think is happening at all levels, Mahala. I don't see, in fact, now that the civil society does not exist in a little bit of a vacuum anymore, right? It's not some far away thing that people are not aware of. LinkedIn is now servicing absolutely all sectors. So I would think that there are so many opportunities coming up, and there are so many organizations that are doing great work in the development sector. So this that I think the trend of hiring continues to be positive. I think a lot of mid-level hiring is happening. A lot of entry-level hiring is happening in the sector. I think leadership hiring, like any other sector, is more cherry-picked. It's more handpicked. You won't see as many opportunities. I also think leaders, when you hire a leader to your organization, you expect them to stay for the longer term. So the crowd is not as, they don't move around as much. So leaders tend to stay for longer. But I think the hiring trend is definitely positive. I'm seeing a lot of opportunities opening up. And in People, for example, we have 7 large programs across the organization. We are hiring right from the associate level to early career managers to leadership positions. Right. So at all levels, we are hiring across both Madhya Pradesh and Delhi. We do have plans of expansion, so there's going to be more work in talent acquisition as we go.
Great. So I think those who are looking for opportunities also, Nitasha and People team is hiring freshers, mid-level, senior level as well. We'll be sharing link as well in the chat in some time. While I do that, Nitasha, the other question is, every org and people also have L&D, learning and development for internal employees, and you prepare them for maybe what is coming, what is emerging. What is the skill that you see is emerging, and we are preparing, or we want people, if they join us, to be prepared for that?
I would say adaptability, right? I think I'm seeing that as something that is becoming very important for people as an organization. I think we are on a massive growth journey, and I think when you're growing and there's momentum, I think once you're in the building, you need to be able to adapt to complexity, to uncertainty, to ambiguity. You need to be able to unlearn, bring in a beginner's mindset, and be willing to take some risks and do new things. I think that's a skill that is of premium for me as a recruiter when I look to bring more people in the organization. And this is not true of just entry level, right? This is at all level. I think to come in and really do your 100%, throw the kitchen sink at it, and really adapt to the circumstance around you and play along. I think that's a very premium skill, and it's not something that honestly can be. I mean, you can learn it, you can get better at it, but it's also something that I look for when I speak to people. That are they coming in with this because it's important.
Great. So I think I tried doing justice with people who have mentioned the questions. Now we're opening, and those who want to ask question, maybe you can put in chat or you can hand raise so that we can start taking one by one. I'm just starting with one question which is in the chat, is from Mansi, which is around, I want a salary which is at least more than what I'm currently earn. Can I shift from edtech to operation and all as a program associate? I have done proposal writing and content development as well, and capacity building training. Mansi, if you're around, if you want to unmute and add some context to this.
Yeah, actually, hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, pretty much. Yeah, please
So
go ahead.
basically, I wanted to know that I have experience of 1.5 years as a program associate in which I have done like
I'm sorry,
implementation.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you very well, Mansi.
Mansi,
Am I
आपका आवाज
audible
नहीं आ
now?
रहा है.
Is it fine now?
थोड़ा, yes.
Okay. So I have experience of more than 1.5 years in the social development sector in FEL. So in that I've done like content development and also proposal writing and multiple project management. So based on that, and my education is basically in social sciences, like human sciences, like psychology and before that education. So what do you think about this and its connection with ground zero and people, like with job tools kind of setup?
आप समझे नहीं, जैसा मुझे थोड़ा सा समझ नहीं आया.
Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
also looking at the message in the chat. I think Mansi's question is that she has about 1.5 years of experience as an associate, and has done a master's in psychology, but she's probably not interested in field level jobs, but any orgs that you may suggest. So I will speak from people's perspective, Mansi. I think if you have, so typically there are some roles where we do look for past experience because, like I said, they are specialized. They require technical knowledge. But fellowships is a good, and people runs a fellowship program every year. We have 15 fellows that we bring on board. It's a 2-year fellowship. It gives you the chance to work at school and also within the program. So first year is at school, the second year is in the program. So it gives you a good view of what the organization does, and it gives you hands-on experience. So I would think that if a pure field-based role is not something that interests you, at People we have the fellowship for folks who have experience of 0 to 2 years. We would encourage that. Um, yeah. But is there anything specific you want to know, or have I answered your question? I'm not sure.
All right, Mansi, if you have a follow-up question, just put in the chat and we'll try, and while you figure out the internet. There is next question from Deepinder Sharma. I have done MA Education and B.Ed, holding 18-year experience in school education like teacher, coordinator, vice principal, and now area manager in a tech company, and tried a few role education sector vacancies as ground zero advertised for field and non-field. Where will I need to improve, get shortlisted by ground zero? Deepinder, is pay, maybe I have mentioned, so you can interact with our recruiters, and they will be deep diving tomorrow. There's a conversation you can register. Nafil, can we use mobile phone for virtual interviews? How do you look at this as a recruiter, Nitasha? And this is a very, very genuine question, considering sometime no or give us laptop, and then when we transition, no, we don't have laptop. So that's the only choice we have. So how do you look at this?
Yeah, so I'm as a recruiter, I'm not fussed about it, right? The only thing about a mobile phone is sometimes the screen doesn't stay constant. It kind of jumps a bit, and it's very it's very a slight touch can also shake the whole thing, so that kind of throws off a little bit. So if you're using a mobile phone, then find a place where you can don't hold it in your hand, because then every time you move, the phone moves, and that caused a lot of confusion. So if you can just prop it up against a bottle or a wall or something and just keep the screen constant, I don't think that's an issue at all.
Great. I think, yeah, I agree with you, Nitasha. Nitasha, next question is from Akshita. She says, if you are transitioning from corporate, is your last salary drawn considered, or are you compensated according to the old salary bands? I'm just adding what Akshita wanted, and or
Yeah.
can it be also, or can it also be lowered? How do you look at this?
Yeah, so it can be lower. It depends on how high your salary in the corporate was. Because, like I said, an organization like Peepul, we have a very structured compensation framework. We have done a benchmarking. So, and we don't do salaries based on individual preferences, right? We do it at the org level to make sure there is parity within peer groups. So there could be situations where you like the role, the opportunity is great, but just from a compensation perspective, we may not be able to afford you even at your previous salary. So you may have to take a bit of a pay cut. That's definitely a situation that occurs more often than I would like. But yes, like I said, we have bands and we typically will fit you in our band.
Correct. Nafil has a question which is around how do you look at employee referrals and portal application, which is something that what is the difference? So say someone is referring or maybe someone is applying through your portal. How do you look at what is the difference?
Yeah. So the only difference in referrals is that it's somebody within the system understands the person that they're referring. So the match to skills and the role that is open is maybe slightly better, because if I'm part of the people system, I know people's work, I know the kind of expectations we have on talent. So if I'm referring somebody, the expectation is I have worked with this person before and I'm able to vouch for them. In a direct application, we don't know the person, right? We don't know, and nobody has worked with them before. So it's sort of a fresh start without anybody telling us, about them and their previous work experience. That's the only difference. But we treat both referrals and direct applications with as much importance. There is no difference in the way we treat them. But we do encourage referrals, because I think there is a certain culture, a way of working, the rigor, the pace of people, and people who are in the organization understand it best. So when we get referrals, we get really excited because we think we are one step closer to that alignment already. So
Great. Janvi का next सवाल है. Should I join a non-profit with lower salary but a bigger non-profit, or a non-profit which is smaller, say like 25 people or sort of, with a high salary? What is the pro and cons you look at this?
yeah, I'm not sure that's the frame you should be looking at, honestly. I think like when I started my career in the sector, I joined the Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiatives. I was the 16th employee, right? It was very small. It was, of course, under the Azim Premji Foundation umbrella, but the entity was new. I took a bet on the people that I spoke to. So something in that opportunity, something about the organization has to call out to you. And for me, it was simply the people that I met in my interview. I honestly did not have any idea how that opportunity would pan out, but it was absolutely fantastic. But I knew that the people I met were very well-intentioned people. They were ambitious. The possibility was very significant. So something about the organization, either the culture or the work they do or the leadership that is steering the organization, has to resonate with you. So I think anchoring it just on the size of the organization or the compensation it may not be enough to consider. You may want to also consider the people behind the mission and the mission alignment itself. So does the mission call out to you? I think that's important to consider.
Correct. Ankita Bist has a long question, but Ankita, would be great if you maybe can unmute and ask. I think that will be with context. Are you around,
Yes,
Ankita? Okay.
yes. Hi, thank you. Good evening. Hi, Natasha. It has been great hearing, just listening to you and your insights. This is a question that I have been quite curious about in the last few months. I'm not sure if I'll be able to explain, like, but I'll try to articulate like the best that I can. So my understanding is when hiring happens, it starts from an HR screening and then it goes to pre-work and set of interviews. And because something that you said at the beginning of the call was around of how specifically at Peepul, how you have aligned as an HR team, what you are looking for in applications. So it just helps you to filter and goes on. And so my understanding is that there are structures or alignments in an organization internally of what they are looking for people, or there are also rubrics of what they are looking like specific skill sets they're looking in people. But I've also come across recently in the last few months of experiences where people were screened in by the HR, but later how their application was rejected because the interviewer, and which might not be an HR, but like specific vertical interviewer who rejected them, saying that their resume doesn't have relevant experience. And so my question here is, I think number one, like, what are your thoughts? Right? Like, are there rubrics or alignments important between like HR and then the other teams to have a smoother experience and like a more time efficient process for both the org and applicant? Second, how should maybe an applicant go ahead with it? Because a lot of times applicant doesn't really know in that case what they are being looked for. Because when the moment the HR screens them in, they think that they fit in the role and they are being on the skills that are mentioned in the resume. They have been proceeded to the next stages, but then they later realize no, they do not have an experience, right? So, like, how do you think in that cases, how should an applicant proceed, or yeah, what like I'm not sure if I'm being able to like explain, but I think these are the stories that have been coming across in the last few months. So, just wanted to hear how do you see them? Like, what is your thought process on that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what we do at Peepul, right? So we have a competency rubric for every role. We're very clear what competencies we're looking for. And like I said, I think the HR team is also very clued into what we do as an organization. So we attend trainings, we are part of program activities, because when you're seeing the program teams in action, you know exactly what happens on the field. So one is that, you can hope that the HR team that is dealing with applications knows what the organization is looking for. And at Peepul, we hold a very high bar. Second is we do have a competency framework, and we also apply that while we recruit, right? So when a new role comes in and we have to hire for them, one of the things that we do follow is we screen resumes along with the hiring manager. So the first batch of resumes are done together, because then HR and the hiring manager is aligned on what we are looking for in applications coming in. So maybe the first set of 20, 30 that come in, we do a joint screening and then we select the resumes. HR also sits in on the first level of conversations. So while they may not, become the main interviewer, they're in observing what the interviewers are asking. They're also making sure that at the end of the conversation, there is a debrief against the core competencies, right? So an interviewer cannot say, oh, this person doesn't, we don't like this person. So we do push for feedback and say, why didn't you like the person? What about their experience didn't fit for us? Which competencies did they not demonstrate? So it's a very, it's a detailed debrief on what didn't work. And we do this with all levels of interview. So we distribute who will sit in which interview and we observe. So that way we are also coaching our interviewers on asking the right questions, probing the right areas, and then having a mutually aligned idea of why we are not taking somebody forward. So we follow at Peepul. So the So the chances that a resume that HR has selected will be completely misaligned to the role are very few, right? But it's possible. It could happen, especially when an HR is doing volume screening. There is a very, very strict deadline. You're looking at getting 50 people in within 2 weeks. So then you just want to keep the pipeline moving. So HR may just pass them on without adequate focus on the alignment. And it could happen in such situations. But at People, we have a very structured competency rubric, and we sit in on interviews and detailed debriefs. So
Great. So
Thank you. I think quite helpful to just understand, to listen from like someone who leads HR of how the process looks like. Thank you very much.
thank
thank
you.
Mohammed Sabi, if you're around, if you want to just unmute and ask very relevant question, or should I ask on your behalf if you're around?
Yeah, so this is Shafi. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So Nitasha, as you mentioned that the you explained the entire process, that how from like first round of screening to the interview, how the process goes. So I have a follow-up question to this. I have been to in this process for twice or thrice, but in all my interview there was no one from HR, and only people who lead different verticals were there, and there was not even a like panel at times. Only single person were taking interviews. So
Mm.
what you told just now is not like matching with my experience, what I had during interviews. So how do you look at this? Matlab, what could be the cause of it?
Yeah. So one is we may not do it
So,
across
uh,
every interview, right?
because
Yeah.
there is one added question also, Sophie. I think missed is there is a 6 month cooling period on the T-test. If you can
Yes,
also,
yes.
so yeah.
Yes. So, Safi, definitely, I think this is a practice that we've tried to institutionalize over the last 6 to 8 months, right? So I joined in about August, and then over the last 5, 6 months, since we institutionalized our competency rubric in December, we've been trying to link it more to hiring and having more
Yeah.
informed choices. Given the volume of interviews that we do, not every round will be a panel, of course, and not every round will have an HR person, right? So we do sort of sampling because we can't be in every conversation, but we're trying to do that more and more for every role. So I may not be sitting in on every interview for every role, but I will definitely sit in on some interviews for every role. And that's how we're looking at it to also optimize for time. So in your experience, it could be that in that particular interview, there was no HR, but somebody else who had applied for the same role, we might have sat in on that interview. So it's definitely not being done across every conversation and every interview panel that's happening. It's also from a time
Okay.
perspective, that's not fully possible.
Yeah, that I understand. At times, like due to volume, you may not be able to available for all the interviews. Also, I have a follow-up question to this. So, um, uh, at what stage would you know that this person's profile is not aligned? After HR screening, or after assignment, or after interview?
It could be a combination, Safi. So sometimes after the HR scoping call, we realize that there isn't a fit, and the fit could be for many reasons, right? One could be compensation, it could be location, right? Or so there could be very hygiene factors why we may not be able to move forward. So it could be at the HR level. Or it could be that sometimes we've had a conversation, but we want to also understand how the person performs in a written evaluation. Because in the written assignment, we are looking for some competencies around being able to think, being able to articulate, and sequence thinking, driving solutions as you think about a case study which is contextualized to people. So it also depends on the level we're hiring for. So for example, if you're hiring for mid management to leadership, but in the assignment it is extremely operational output, right? Or it's hugely AI, and very little effort has sort of gone into any original thinking. We take a cumulative score of the first conversation and the assignment together, and we take a call. But the assignment is also an evaluation round. And sometimes it could be that you've passed the HR, you've had the first level, you've done the assignment, and maybe in the round R3 or R4, as we call it, the hiring manager is not seeing the fit. And even in that level, there could be differences between the level that we see the candidate coming in at versus where the candidate would like to come in at. So there are many reasons why it may not work at different stages.
All right.
Okay.
Looking
So,
at time, I'll add two, three questions in one go, and then maybe Nitasha.
uh,
Okay, you have a follow-up?
MS, I just want to know about that 6 month wala thing.
Okay, okay. Got
If
it.
she can answer that,
Nitasha,
that is important, I guess.
yeah.
What's the question on the 6 months?
Generally, no people, someone did the t-test, and then there is a cooling period of 6 months if they did not pass the t-test. So, what is the logic, or why do we have a 6 month cooling period for that?
Yeah.
Not only T-test, even after getting rejected for one role, you are not allowed to apply for any other role for next 6 month of period. So,
All right.
what's the thought behind it and why this clause?
Yeah. So one is, I think, Safi, just that a lot of time, an investment has gone into that first conversation, right? So, and we do have a very long pipeline. So we do want to sort of move through the pipeline, also speak to people who have applied to us. And we do think that there are certain common competencies, core competencies, which the person may not have demonstrated fully. And we think 6 months is a good period of time for any progress to happen. So if we do think that the person has not made it, speaking to them again after 2 months is not going to change too much, not in their reality, not in our reality. So 6 months will mean that, you have also progressed in those 6 months, and after 6 months it's a good enough time period to see actual shifts, and that's why we keep the 6 months. The T test for us is an aptitude test. So in Peepul there is a lot of work that happens, which is which requires you to think on your feet, which requires you to be nimble. You also deal with numbers, you deal with stakeholders, so a lot of decision making. So it does test under stress a little bit, the aptitude. So for that we do have a cutoff. But honestly speaking, we do have our cutoffs are very low, right? So we do understand that not everybody is great at aptitude tests and stress tests, but our cutoffs are very, very low. So if somebody has scored below our cutoff, which is already very low, then the chances are that once they come into the system, they might struggle a little bit, right, with core competencies around data, around language, around, so they will struggle. So, and that's why we keep a very low threshold um, to make sure they also are set up for success once they come in.
Great. Srishti, you have hand raised for some time now. If you want to quickly ask your question.
Yes. Hi, good evening. Just wanted to know that a lot of times we are seeing presently, because people gives a very competitive salary. So for say, I have certain number of experience, but the JD mentions also matches with the number of year of experiences I have. But the person who has also applied may have more number of experience, but maybe due to salary bracket and all, they have also applied with more number of experience, but which is not required in the JD. So how as a HR do you evaluate this kind of CVs? And I mean, what are the chances then, for example, if I don't have that amount of experience?
Yeah. So I think years of experience is just one indicator, Shrishti, and there's usually a give or take, of some percentage on both sides. We don't go very strictly by if we have set 4 to 6, and it has to be between 4 to 6. It can be 3 to 5. It can be 4 to 8. The idea is to focus more on what the journey of the person has been, how relevant their previous experience is to the role that we're seeking. So years of experience for us is just an indicator. We will not reject a CV because it doesn't match the exact number of years of experience that we're looking for. And I do think that, and this is something that at Peepul we do. So if we're on the fence and if you're not sure, we always default to having a first level conversation, right? If we are not sure, we usually pick up the phone and we say, can we have a 30-minute exploratory call to understand what your own motivation is? Because when we see people with a lot of experience applying to roles which are maybe more junior or mid-level, I'm curious to understand what their motivation is. So we don't anchor. I mean, it's not a single anchor that we use for screening.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, people. Thank you so much. I think there are a few questions still left unanswered. We'll try taking them next Wednesday. Looking at time, we've requested Nitasha for 7:45. Had some tech glitch, but thank you so much, Nitasha, for your time and insights. I hope these are helpful for those who are exploring career in the sector or exploring transition. If you have, say, if you had a question and you did not get a chance to hear from Nitasha, we'll be adding Nitasha's LinkedIn ID, so you can drop a message and Nitasha, as and when she'll try responding. We'll also be sharing people recruitment career-based links. So if you're exploring, they're hiring in Madhya Pradesh and Delhi, and then there are a few new projects that are coming in. So feel free to keep a tab on the new hirings. Thank you so much, everyone. But before we end, Nitasha, if you have any final message before we end, and then so yeah.
No final message. Thank you so much for having me. I think we've all been on the other side where we've all applied to jobs and we've wondered what happened to our applications because it's usually so opaque, right? You don't know what the HR team is thinking, what criteria they're applying. So I think this platform is great to sort of break that down, dispel some myths, and also talk about some processes that HR teams usually follow in the back end. So you're able to prepare better as you apply for jobs. So I think this was super useful. I hope it was useful to the wider team as well. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Mala.
thank you so much, Nitasha. And those who have joined, it's not something that we keep on having a conversation with Nitasha and a couple of other HRs and keep on trying how do we make the sector and the hiring processes better, and things are evolving. So some of the things that you have in mind, some of the question you have around hirings might take some time, but it's not something that we are not keeping a tab on these, and these are struggle HR also know. So we'll be back with another conversation next Wednesday.
Nitasha, ma'am,
Uh,
Yes.
can I ask you one last question?
Yes, sure.
Okay,
Mala, if that's okay with you.
yeah, okay.
now we'll just try to be sharp. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very quickly. We are using professional summary, skills, achievements. All these are AI generated. Like, uh, does actually HR reads this professional summary or certifications?
Yes. So, like I said, I think usually I see a long list of certifications or extracurricular, but usually we don't see that in the professional experience, right? Or where it links to professional or how it has helped them become better or more effective in their experience. The professional summary is definitely something that I read and something that I talk about in my interviews because the more impact focused you make it, the more outcomes that you mention, it helps me understand what your contribution was. What kind of heavy lifting that you were able to do independently. So I usually do pick that up and talk about it in the interviews. But the list of professional certifications, extracurricular, if you could just link it with how that has made you more effective as a professional, I think that would help.
All right, people. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be back. I'll share Nitasha's LinkedIn ID. So those unanswered question we'll try to maybe you can ping Nitasha directly. And thank you so much, Nitasha, again for joining, taking out time for the community. See you next week, folks, if you have follow-up question with another recruiter. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.